Now, Victor spent nearly 4 hours exploring the bottom of the Mariana Trench in his submersible, which is built to withstand the immense pressure from that kind of deep water.
Now, Victor spent nearly 4 hours exploring the bottom of the Mariana Trench in his submersible, which is built to withstand the immense pressure from that kind of deep water. When the audio engineers first replayed the recording, they thought their equipment was broken. The signal was too clean, too structured, and far too deliberate to be background noise. The Mariana Trench is usually a soundtrack of low groans, distant quakes, and the occasional metallic ping from shifting rock. But this was patterned, repetitive, almost like something was broadcasting from a pressure zone where nothing man-made should survive. The pulse from the deep. For most deep ocean missions, the Mariana Trench behaves like a giant sleeping animal, quiet, predictable, occasionally grumbling, but rarely surprising. Veteran crew members even joke that the trench is the most boring extreme environment on Earth. You send your sensors down, they record hours of low-frequency hums and shifting rock, and you return home with nothing but data spreadsheets. So when a sudden, sharply defined acoustic pulse slammed into the hydrophones, everyone on board knew instantly that something was off. Deep-sea noise is usually messy. Earthquakes produce ragged waves, submarine currents create long, uneven moans, even marine animals, those bizarre glow-in-the-dark things living in crushing darkness, make irregular fluttering sounds. But this recording wasn't messy. It was tight, measured, consistent. It almost felt manufactured, as if someone had engineered a sound that could cut through 6 miles of water. At first, the team thought a calibration glitch was messing with them, but the equipment was new, the readings were stable, and multiple sensors spaced wide apart captured the exact same signature. In other words, the source was real, the pulse was real, and it came from somewhere very deep. What made the anomaly unnerving wasn't only the clarity, it was the location. It originated near the lower slope of the Challenger Deep, where pressure reaches over 1,000 atmospheres. At that depth, submarines implode, ROVs fail, and lithium batteries freeze. Not even the most advanced military drones can function reliably down there. So the simple question everyone asked was, how did anything produce a clean, stable signal in a place that destroys almost everything? That one question opened the door to dozens of others, and that's when the situation escalated. The moment the ship docked, the data was quietly requested by 3 different agencies: scientific, environmental, and military. That never happens for a basic acoustic anomaly. Usually, research teams analyze their findings for months before anyone else even cares. This time, people cared immediately. Within a week, the recording had been placed under internal review. Unofficially, analysts began comparing it to known signatures, submarine pings, volcanic tremors, undersea cable failures, and the acoustic profiles of deep ocean landslides. None matched. Some experts suggested it resembled a controlled energy burst. Others thought it looked like resonance from an object moving through a pressure zone it shouldn't be able to survive. A few pointed out that the signal repeated with too much precision to be random geology. The most unsettling part, the oddity appeared twice. The second pulse, recorded a few hours later, was fainter but identical in structure. That suggested movement, not stationary machinery, not a fluke. Something had shifted position deep inside the trench, that if you dive deeper than 3,500 meters, there's a good chance to discover a new species unknown to sight. Scientists debated natural explanations: a rare mineral collapse, a pressure pocket cracking open, a deep-sea fault line resonating. All possible, all unlikely. What bothered analysts more was the timing. Over the last decade, at least 4 nations have expanded deep ocean surveillance programs, not for science, but for defense. Underwater cables, listening networks, and silent drones now monitor depth zones that used to be ignored. So when a structured signal pops up in the deepest trench on Earth, the immediate fear isn't what creature did this, but what country is testing something down there. Because if a nation figured out how to operate tech at 36,000 feet, that's not just an engineering milestone, it's a geopolitical weapon. Satellites rule space, submarines rule the mid-ocean, but the abyss belongs to nobody. If someone cracked that last frontier, the balance of power shifts overnight. Whether the anomaly came from a natural phenomenon or something engineered, one fact became clear. The world's deepest point was no longer just a geological landmark, it was now a strategic asset. Nations that barely acknowledged the trench before suddenly found themselves wanting high-resolution maps, energy readings, and access to the raw files. And for the first time, the Mariana Trench wasn't just a scientific curiosity. It was a place where global competition could get very real, very fast. And the more experts dug into what might be hiding down there, the harder it became to ignore why the trench matters far more than people realize. Mariana, the most valuable real estate on Earth. Most people think the Mariana Trench is just a deep hole in the ocean. Interesting to look at on a map, maybe good for a documentary, but not something worth fighting over. But that mindset is outdated. The truth is, the trench sits at the crossroads of science, energy, biology, surveillance, and national security. It's a place where the planet shows its raw power and where countries see opportunities they don't want anyone else touching. Once you realize what the trench offers, the global tension around that strange anomaly suddenly makes a lot more sense. For starters, the Mariana region is one of the most geologically active places on Earth. It's where the Pacific Plate dives under the Philippine Sea Plate, creating a massive pressure cooker of minerals, volcanic energy, and shifting rock. Down there, the planet cooks metals into forms you don't find anywhere else. Scientists have documented rare earth elements, superheated fluids, and mineral vents capable of supporting chemical reactions that don't exist on land. If technology ever advances enough to reach these zones safely, whoever gets there first won't just find exotic geography, they'll find resources that power the entire modern world. The same materials used in missiles, smartphones, satellites, electric vehicles, and advanced computing are sitting locked beneath that trench. The deeper you look, the more valuable the place becomes. The water chemistry alone is bizarre. Every layer of depth creates a new chemical environment, a new pressure zone, and a new temperature pocket that could hold substances we've never analyzed. That's a dream for energy researchers. Hydrate deposits, methane structures, and pressure-borne compounds could be hiding in those dark layers. Even if they can't be harvested now, the nation that maps them first owns the future advantage. It's basically a bank vault full of unknowns, and governments love unknowns when they smell opportunity. Then there's the biological side, which the public usually forgets about, but scientists obsess over. Life in the trench survives under crushing pressure, near freezing temperatures, and absolute darkness. Every organism that thrives there is a potential medical breakthrough. Enzymes that resist extreme pressure could revolutionize drug design. Proteins stable in cold temperatures could transform industrial production. Microbes capable of digesting toxic chemicals could be used for waste cleanup or fuel development. The trench isn't just deep, it's evolutionary insanity, a living lab where nature runs experiments humans can't recreate. If even one species down there holds a unique biological trait useful for pharmaceuticals, the value would overshadow entire industries. But the trench offers more than resources, it offers leverage. Whoever understands the deep ocean gains a surveillance advantage that other countries can't easily detect or counter.
Communication cables snake across the Pacific, carrying trillions of dollars worth of financial transactions, government communications, and global internet traffic. Many of these lines run close to the trench or across similar depth zones. The ability to monitor, repair, or interfere with those cables gives a nation quiet power, the kind no one admits publicly, but everyone watches in private. And of course, there's the military angle. The trench sits in a region where the United States, China, Japan, and several Pacific nations already compete for influence. Submarines travel through these waters. Surveillance equipment listens from the deep, and every country wants to know what the others are doing far below the surface. The deeper the technology goes, the more unpredictable the playing field becomes. Deep-sea drones are advancing fast. Some can now stay underwater for months. If a country figured out how to operate drones or sensors in the trench's extreme depths, it could create an invisible monitoring network that no rival could reach or destroy. Control the abyss, and you control the blind spot of the entire Pacific. You can say with confidence that's the oldest ocean floor before it's getting swallowed up in the mantle at the trench. That's why the anomaly wasn't treated like a random quirk. Nations don't get nervous about ocean noises unless they think someone else might be testing something bigger, something that can operate where nobody else can. The Mariana Trench has turned into a pressure point, not just for the Earth's crust, but for global politics. It's an untapped frontier loaded with scientific promise, strategic secrets, and unknown risks. And the moment a strange signal echoed out from its darkest pocket, the world started paying attention. But to really understand why that strange signal matters, you have to look even deeper into the raw, unstable engine that powers the trench itself. Heat, minerals, and everything the surface never sees. If you strip away the mystery, the fear, and the political noise, the Mariana Trench is really one thing: the edge of the planet's power grid. It's the meeting point of massive tectonic plates, the birthplace of hydrothermal systems, and a pressure zone where the Earth literally folds in on itself. That's why scientists obsess over it. Every meter down tells a story about how the Earth behaves when no one is watching. And if something unusual triggered that recorded anomaly, chances are it ties back to the wild forces running through this deep underworld. Down in the trench, heat doesn't behave like heat on the surface. It doesn't rise gently. It doesn't evenly warm rock. It explodes in bursts, gets trapped in pockets, and moves through cracks with violent unpredictability. When the Pacific plate slides beneath the Philippine Sea plate, friction generates temperatures high enough to melt solid rock. But instead of rising smoothly, this molten material can create superheated vents, miniature undersea furnaces, sometimes hotter than 700 degrees Fahrenheit. And yet, right beside those vents, you'll find freezing seawater only a few feet away. That extreme contrast creates a chaotic zone where minerals dissolve, reform, and sometimes produce compounds scientists can't recreate in a lab. This isn't just geological trivia. These reactions could explain energy spikes, pressure waves, or shock pulses, any of which might match the strange acoustic pattern the team recorded. When rock cracks under deep pressure, the sound behaves differently. It doesn't echo like a normal quake. It can ring like metal, pulse like a sonar ping, or create a wave so clean that sensors misinterpret it as something artificial. The Mariana Trench is basically a machine that creates signals people don't yet know how to read. And that machine runs non-stop. The Earth is constantly grinding, cooking, compressing, and shifting in ways most people will never see. But those movements shape more than geology. They shape politics. Countries with advanced seismic mapping systems can use this deep Earth noise to locate submarine movement, detect drilling, or track underwater activity that residents will never hear about. In other words, understanding the trench's natural heartbeat gives you a strategic advantage. If you know what normal sounds like, you can pick out the abnormal instantly. That's why this anomaly hit nerve centers. It didn't match the known baseline. It didn't behave like the usual geological signatures, and it didn't echo in the way natural rock fractures typically do.
It seemed coordinated, almost as if something triggered or responded to the surrounding environment. The weirdest part is that the reading showed an energy burst followed by a subtle shift in pressure, something analysts struggled to classify. Could a naturally occurring pressure chamber collapse produce that? Possibly. Could a movement of molten rock? Maybe. But neither explanation fits perfectly, and that's the problem. The trench also creates minerals that don't exist anywhere else. The intense heat and pressure can compress common elements into rare structures, including hydrogen-rich compounds and metallic crystals with unusual electrical properties. These materials store energy differently, transfer electricity differently, and might even resonate in unique ways. If a pocket of these minerals fractured or shifted, it could unleash an acoustic wave sharp enough to look artificially generated. The possibility is real, and researchers know it. But the data's symmetry, the tight timing and repeated pulse make some scientists doubt a purely natural event. We know subduction is happening because of the active earthquakes, and these are the most devastating earthquakes. The deeper you go into the trench's engine room, the more obvious it becomes that this place is not a stable environment. It's a volatile system with the power to mimic artificial signals or create patterns that look intentional, and that's what complicates everything. The anomaly sits right at the intersection of nature's extremes and humanity's deepest ambitions. If the pulse came from geological forces, it tells us the planet is more unpredictable than we thought. If it didn't, then someone or something has access to depths the world assumed were unreachable. Either way, the trench isn't just a deep hole, it's a pressure-loaded reactor with the potential to affect technology, infrastructure, and global strategy. And if the geology down there is wild, the biology living inside it is even stranger and potentially far more valuable. Life at the bottom, creatures built for the impossible. If the trench's geology feels like something ripped out of a disaster movie, the biology down there looks like a creature designer went off script. Everything that lives in the Mariana Trench seems custom-built to survive conditions that should kill anything with a heartbeat. Into the Mariana Trench, and this, at its lowest point, is nearly 11 kilometers deep. These organisms don't act like surface animals. They don't grow like them. They don't even break down food the same way. And that's why biologists treat the trench like a treasure chest, one packed with creatures that could change medicine, industry, and technology in ways we're only starting to understand. Take the amphipods, the tiny, transparent, shrimp-like creatures found crawling around the trench floor. They look fragile, but they're tougher than steel in their own way. Their cells contain pressure-resistant compounds that keep proteins from collapsing under 16,000 psi. If humans had that trait, submarines wouldn't need thick hulls. Engineers are studying these compounds for everything from medicine to aerospace materials. A single protein discovered at that depth could rewrite the entire survival playbook for extreme environments. And amphipods are just the warm-up act. Bacteria down there thrive on chemicals that would poison land animals instantly. Some of these microbes eat hydrogen, methane, or even trace metals, using them as fuel. A few produce enzymes that stay stable under pressure and near freezing temperatures.
Enzymes that pharmaceutical companies view like gold. If you can build a drug that doesn't break down easily, you get longer shelf life, stronger treatments, and entirely new types of therapies. So when someone talks about deep-sea patents, this is what they mean. The trench might hold cures we never thought to look for. But the creatures get stranger. Some deep-sea species have fat layers that resist freezing, muscles that don't compress, and pigments that glow under pressure. These adaptations are more than biological quirks. They're hints at how chemistry behaves under extreme conditions. Tech companies want that knowledge, so do energy researchers. If a biological structure can remain functional at 7 meters down, it might also work inside reactors, space missions, or advanced manufacturing systems. In short, the trench's creatures aren't just weird, they're valuable. This is where the anomaly becomes even more interesting. If something triggered a patterned pulse in the deepest part of the ocean, there's always the chance it came from a biological agent interacting with the environment in a way we don't yet understand. Some deep-sea animals generate sound through pressure releases, chemical reactions, or rapid movement. Most of these noises are chaotic and scattered, but if an unknown species has evolved a way to communicate or respond to seismic shifts, the resulting acoustic signal might look structured even though it's natural. The odds are slim, but the trench has produced slim odds creatures before. On the other hand, the repeated pulse the crew recorded didn't match anything in the known biological library. Still, that doesn't rule out something alive being involved. After all, only a tiny fraction of deep ocean species have been documented, and the trench floor remains mostly unmapped. Every expedition uncovers new organisms, half of them so strange that researchers joke the animals look 3D printed by pressure. If an undiscovered species moved through a mineral-rich zone or reacted to a deep Earth heat pocket, it might generate a signature humans mistake for something artificial. That's the problem with studying the deepest place on the planet. You can't ever say you've seen it all. Every creature down there is built to defy expectations. Every new discovery challenges what scientists thought life could survive. And every adaptation comes with potential secrets that countries would love to own before anyone else gets the chance. So while politicians and defense advisors worry about the anomaly being a test, a weapon, or some piece of classified technology, biologists see it differently. They focus on the possibility that the pulse came from life that doesn't fit the categories we already know. And if that's the case, the trench becomes even more valuable than the minerals below it. A single species with a unique enzyme could be worth billions. Whether the anomaly was geological, engineered, or biological, one truth remains untouched. The Mariana Trench is hiding life forms that operate under physics we barely understand. And whoever understands those organisms first gains an edge in medicine, material science, and even military tech. And while the biology is wild enough, the political side of the trench is where things get truly explosive. The politics lurking beneath the waves. The Mariana Trench isn't just a deep pit in the Pacific, it's a secret vault that nations have quietly circled for decades. On paper, it sits near U.S. territories like Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands, but the surrounding waters are part of a high-stakes arena where the U.S., China, Japan, and other Indo-Pacific powers all have eyes on one another.
When they got to the western Pacific, 200 meters off the island of Guam, the crew routinely lowered the rope for a measurement. Everyone knows the trench holds untapped resources and strategic advantages, even if the surface seems calm. The moment an unexplained anomaly is detected, nations instantly adjust their patrols and research schedules, as if choreographed by a hidden hand. In the deep ocean, there are no borders, but ambitions are as clear as daylight. Under the crushing weight of the Pacific, the Mariana hides rare earth minerals, cobalt, nickel, manganese, and other compounds critical to modern technology. These are the building blocks for satellites, missiles, electric vehicles, and even advanced computing systems. Whoever gains first access to these materials doesn't just secure a resource, they gain a leverage point over global tech and military balance. And the anomaly makes everything more urgent, because any unknown in the trench could signal someone else is moving faster, claiming a potential advantage before others even notice. In geopolitics, uncertainty is just as dangerous as overt aggression. Scientists see the anomaly as an exciting mystery, a puzzle of biology, geology, or chemistry waiting to be solved. Governments, however, see the same data as a strategic tool. A single discovery could be spun into national headlines, scientific prestige, or even a clandestine advantage in military operations. Every research vessel that suddenly shows up in the trench could be collecting data or quietly testing the limits of its own country's technology. Sensors, drones, and deep-sea vehicles often blend scientific exploration with reconnaissance, and it's nearly impossible for outsiders to tell the difference. Part of the tension comes from the lack of clear legal oversight in these extreme depths. International agreements barely cover the trench, and there is no single authority governing the resources or discoveries beneath miles of crushing water. Who owns a rare mineral deposit?
Who has the right to study a newly discovered species or geothermal vent? Any anomaly instantly raises questions that have no easy answers. The secrecy is built into the environment itself, and in a world already divided by competition over resources and technology, even a minor discovery can ripple through global politics like a silent earthquake. The Mariana Trench is a place where the stakes above the waterline meet the mysteries below. Every pulse, every unusual reading, every unexplored chasm has the potential to shift scientific understanding and geopolitical balance at the same time. If the anomaly recorded by researchers turns out to be anything more than a natural geological quirk, it could mark the start of a new chapter in how humanity interacts with the ocean's deepest and most powerful frontier, the trench's endgame. The Mariana Trench sits in one of the most politically charged regions on the planet, yet most people never hear its name in news about global tension. On the surface, it looks simple. The trench is located near Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands, which means it's within the United States Exclusive Economic Zone, EEZ. But deep ocean geopolitics is never simple. The EEZ gives the U.S. control over resources extending 200 nautical miles offshore. But controlling resources in shallow waters is completely different from managing a 7-mile deep abyss where conventional laws barely apply. The truth is that no country fully owns the trench in the traditional sense. The U.S. oversees access, yes, but it doesn't own the abyss itself. The deeper you go, the blurrier the legal lines become, and that's exactly where politics start to twist. If the anomaly detected in the trench suggests anything unusual, be it geological energy sources, unknown vents, or rare mineral structures, the question of ownership becomes instantly volatile. Every major power has its own interpretation of sea law. China claims expanded maritime rights across the Pacific through its vast naval presence and research stations. In the Mariana Trench in the West Pacific, the Chinese Academy of Sciences says the vehicle, called the Haido-1, collected biological samples. Japan, with its advanced oceanographic programs, argues for scientific access and environmental stewardship. Meanwhile, the U.S. maintains full strategic dominance around Guam through military bases and submarine routes, giving it a kind of enforced guardianship over the trench, even if global law doesn't explicitly frame it that way. And the moment an anomaly appears, each of these countries sees something different. China sees opportunity, Japan sees a scientific frontier, and the U.S. sees something it must secure before anyone else does.
Energy potential complicates things even further. The Mariana Trench is lined with hydrothermal vents, subduction zone heat pockets, and geological structures capable of storing methane hydrates, frozen energy buried under pressure. Methane hydrates alone are considered by some geologists to be the future of global fuel, a cleaner burning resource that could theoretically replace oil if extracted safely. Add the possibility of geothermal heat sources and mineral-rich deposits formed by deep-sea pressure, and you have an underwater gold mine of energy and rare elements. No country wants to admit they're eyeing it for extraction, but every major power has quietly increased deep-sea research funding over the last decade. They all claim it's for science, but deep-sea science often doubles as resource. The U.S., for example, rarely talks about how valuable the trench is in public, but its military has quietly expanded submarine listening networks around the region. These systems aren't just for tracking movement, they're also tuned to geological vibrations, capable of detecting anything from seismic activity to drilling, mining, or unauthorized exploration. China, on the other hand, has been pouring money into deep-diving submersibles that can reach the ocean floor with little notice from surface vessels. Their strategy is subtle: increase capability first, then negotiate for rights later. Japan takes a different approach, focusing on scientific prestige.
Their expeditions map deep ecosystems, vents, and geological structures with stunning accuracy. But behind all this data gathering is the unspoken understanding that whoever maps the trench best will be the first to benefit when extraction becomes technologically feasible. The political future of the Mariana Trench depends heavily on the next decade of technology. If deep-sea mining systems advance faster than expected, the world will enter a phase no one is prepared for, a rush for underwater territory. Suddenly, the remote, silent trench will become a high-stakes zone of international claims, corporate partnerships, environmental protests, and military posturing. If the anomaly turns out to be connected to energy pockets or unstable geological formations, nations will argue even harder about who gets to investigate and who gets to regulate future activity. The UN may step in, but historically, ocean laws always lag behind real-world power plays. By the time global organizations debate the rules, the major powers will already have made their moves. One of the biggest political fears is that the trench could become a strategic energy buffer. Whoever controls cleaner, cheaper, deep ocean energy sources will gain leverage over countries still dependent on traditional oil or imported fuel. Even a small pilot operation extracting methane hydrates or tapping geothermal output could shift regional alliances. A country like China, which aggressively seeks energy independence, sees deep-sea fields as a way to cut vulnerabilities. The U.S., meanwhile, sees control of the trench as a matter of national security because power in the Pacific shapes everything from trade routes to defense logistics to diplomatic relationships. There's also the possibility that the trench becomes a geopolitical bargaining chip. The U.S. might strengthen ties with Pacific allies by granting limited scientific partnerships. China could offer technological collaboration in exchange for access. In 2012, a Chinese manned submersible, the Jiaolong, reached the depth of 7,000 meters in the Mariana Trench. Japan might push for conservation treaties that still give them research priority. And if another anomaly appears, something even harder to explain or even more promising, these negotiations will intensify. Deep ocean diplomacy is already happening quietly behind closed doors. The anomaly just throws more weight into the room. Scientists warn that opening the trench to extraction could be dangerous. The trench is part of the Earth's deepest pressure release system, absorbing tectonic shifts and stabilizing surrounding plates. Any interference could have unpredictable consequences. But geopolitics tends to override caution when resources are involved, and political leaders will always ask the same question: what happens if our rivals get there first? Fear of falling behind often drives riskier decisions than ambition itself. So the future of the Mariana Trench is a collision course between geology and politics. On one hand, the trench is a fragile environment shaped by forces humans barely understand. On the other hand, it's a treasure chest of rare minerals, pressure-borne energy, and technological advantages that could tilt global power balances. The anomaly caught on sensors is just a spark, but sparks start fires. If it indicates activity deeper than anything previously recorded, governments won't treat it as a scientific curiosity, they'll treat it as a national interest. The trench may become the next frontier where nations draw invisible borders, compete through silent technology, and negotiate with smiles while preparing for conflict below the surface. It's not war they're preparing for, it's dominance. And the deepest place on Earth, once ignored for its inaccessibility, may soon become the most important piece of underwater real estate in the world. Don't miss the next deep-sea revelation. Subscribe now and dive into the mysteries in this channel.